A routine LiDAR scan of the planet's surface uncovered the ruins of an unknown civilization hidden in the Amazon rainforest. The dense canopy of undergrowth had camouflaged the abandoned city for more than 4,000 years. It remained obscured until geomapping technology saw through the lush vegetation. The wealth of partially visible architectural work spurred archaeologists to investigate. I headed the expedition. We knew precisely where it was. Getting to the location was the challenge. There wasn't an airport or landing strip within 80 miles of the remote spot. There were no towns or native villages nearby. The jungle had reclaimed the once thriving city as its own. It was as far off the map as any other point in civilization. We organized a rugged team of experts and raised funding through numerous scientific and educational institutions. Interest was incredibly high, as was the cost of mounting the ambitious project. The heavy equipment alone needed to get us there was over $10 million. Finding qualified personnel to bring aboard was another hurdle. There were numerous archaeologists ready to jump at the opportunity, but we also needed industrial drivers and trained equipment operators. Someone had to bulldoze us a road to the site, but have enough finesse and tact with the huge earth movers, backhoes, and excavators to be delicate where it counted. We needed cooks, laundry people, doctors, carpenters, and every other occupational expert it required to build a mobile village in the middle of a jungle. That detail is very important to this story. Staging and planning are crucial to any project of this size. They call it the rainforest for a reason. There are usually a few brief, seasonal respites from the torrential downpours. It didn't matter if we assembled the perfect team to excavate this lost civilization, if they were at risk of drowning from swollen rivers or unrelenting precipitation. We had to be in place during the dry season and work long, hard hours when we could. The infrastructure had to be perfect. Based on weather predictions and the best planning we could orchestrate, my team launched the project right on the target date. I was quite proud that everything fell precisely into place. The dig site and our camp took shape so quickly I could hardly believe it. The sights, sounds, and fragrant scents of the jungle were simply captivating. I couldn't wait to dig into the rich virgin soil and introduce the world to a long-forgotten chapter of history. It was incredibly thrilling to realize what important work we were about to embark upon. The road, housing, sanitation, medical station, and food storage units were set up and ready. A few minor squabbles occurred between team members, but any time you assemble complete strangers in a remote, hostile environment, tempers are bound to flare. Those hiccups were minimal and easily navigated. Almost immediately, we realized the architecture was drastically different from other prehistoric Latin American cultures. So much so, it was startling. This civilization predated the Aztec, Olmec, Mayan, and Incan societies by roughly a millennia. Yet their building style and tolerances nearly rivaled modern standards. Laser measuring devices on their square surfaces and archways showed little more than a millimeter of inconsistency. If nothing else, that metric spoke volumes about them. I'd seen a few photographs from the advanced scouting team, which were exciting, but to witness the massive, vine-covered buildings jutting out of the hillsides offered another degree of wow. It was fascinating to see evidence of an advanced people who last lived there during the Stone Age. It begged the question, what happened to them? We didn't know, but hoped to solve that and many other mysteries. Our landscaping experts cleared the foliage around the camp so we could get to work. It was painstakingly slow, but eventually we had a baseline to start the process. As soon as our tools pierced the organic soil, the removal of centuries of sediment and debris revealed exciting new details. We quickly understood the area in need of clearing was much greater than what we'd allowed for. I instructed the deforestation crew to expand the perimeter outward by a quarter mile. In the end, even that wasn't enough. Surface evidence soon revealed the ruins stretched far beyond our original estimates and projections. It occurred to the chief field archaeologist that our excavation could actually be multiple smaller city-states which had grown together. Details discovered later, however, refuted his overlap theory. Our dig site was possibly the largest prehistoric city of the Bronze Age, eclipsing the impressive populations of Ur, Uruk, and Athens. We were in for a shock when we surveyed the scale of the dwellings. The archways, ceiling clearance, and high window openings suggested a race of abnormal behemoths. The thing about that was, many buildings in prehistoric times were constructed out of proportion with their physical needs. It was driven by excessive pride and vanity. The relative size of the structures themselves didn't prove anything conclusive. We knew that, but the highly unusual skeletal remains we unearthed soon after certainly did. At a time when the average adult human was barely 5 feet tall, the bizarre remains pulled from the royal cemetery all had oblong skulls and elongated features. The shortest of them would have stood over 7 feet tall. Incredibly, the children were exceptionally lanky as well, based on numerous deformed femur specimens we uncovered. With unfused cranial sutures and a lack of adult teeth, they died before puberty. Regardless, they were exceptional in height too. It was apparently a society of malformed giants. To say we were troubled would have been an understatement. Our chief biologist theorized there might have been rampant inbreeding within the royal family population, or pituitary tumors causing abnormal giantism. The puzzling growth deformities were consistent across the upper classes' remains in the royal gravesite and made up the majority of the bones we discovered. A handful of normal-height skeletal exceptions were located interred in a mass grave elsewhere. Their pauper burials indicated they were lower-class citizens and had been discarded with a cold, haphazard indifference. It was a total paradox to the abnormally developed individuals carefully placed in their memorial tombs. Our puzzling discovery of deformed Bronze Age giants might have been unparalleled, but that was only the beginning. The team found strange tool relics at the dig sites which had no clear purpose. Their impressive artifacts pointed to an advanced culture of craftsmanship. That much was certain. Even among the leaders of the ancient world, we soon realized this lost Amazonian tribe possessed a higher level of technical knowledge than their contemporaries. In some ways, what we discovered came close to rivaling our modern capabilities. Ornate sigils and pictographs donned the stone palace walls we processed. Our resident linguist recorded the cryptic characters and diligently worked to decipher them. His video footage and still photographs were uploaded to the university computer lab for artificial intelligence analysis. Luckily, we had a secure satellite link to fast-track the process. I'd hoped for at least a partial translation in order to learn more about our long-absent hosts, but those things can take years. I wasn't holding my breath. Sometimes, an old language is never unraveled. I didn't expect results during the primary dig season, but hoped for some insight to the basic characters. However, with the advent of supercomputers and specialized software, faster results can happen. In our case, the basic language was partially broken in 3 days. As amazing as that was, I wish I could have been more thrilled with the benefits of the technology. Like an unwanted storm cloud overhead, The unpleasant things we learned from the translation completely darkened my mood. I didn't want to believe any of it at first. I thought their written history inscribed on the town square walls was merely creative mythology. I didn't think they actually believed they came from another solar system, or that their species enslaved the human race in order to eat them. It read like morbid tales from a batty grandmother entertaining her unruly grandchildren. Unfortunately, it went a long way in explaining the mass burial pit of normal human bones. It was getting harder by the minute to dismiss the craziness we'd recently uncovered as simply the handing down of grisly folklore to the next generation. According to the inscriptions, they called their people the Ni-Fi-Lem, as closely as we could pronounce it. Finally, we had a name for the culture, but I was hesitant to share that with the investors. Some required regular updates on our progress because they intended to develop television specials. Others intended to open a museum wing with exclusive artifacts from our excavations. Regardless of their interest in the project, all the investors expected a financial return on their investment. They were expecting another Aztec-like culture. Human sacrifice aside, the Aztecs were practically Boy Scouts compared to these 7-foot-tall cannibal ghouls. None of the sponsors would be too thrilled to learn the Ni-Fi-Lem were freakishly tall, had elongated skulls and torsos, and believed they were space aliens. As if that wasn't bad enough, they prided themselves in enslaving humanity as their primary food source. Those bullet points were probably going to be a little bit too dark for primetime television. I sent photos of the stonework and general progress reports to stall for time. That seemed to keep them satisfied. I didn't dare reveal we translated some writing inscriptions and stumbled upon a bizarre history of the Ni-Fi-Lem tribe. That, and unknown devices of questionable origin buried in the ruins. The further down we went, the stronger the evidence appeared. I didn't want to entertain the completely bonkers idea of an extinct Amazon race being from another planet, but the growing list of details we'd compiled about them was definitely compelling. We were all thinking it, but none of us dared say it out loud. In this business, such an outrageous claim would lead to academic and career suicide. The laser-like precision of their building construction, their highly abnormal skeletal remains, and the unknown cache of tools we unearthed added significantly to those worries. My dig foreman, Mark Davis, took me aside. He obviously wanted to show me something, but was hesitant to do so. I told him whatever he had to share was confidential and safe with me. That reassured him, so he led me to the object of his concern. In the center of the buried city, his team had excavated down to a new level within the ruins. A large tarp covered the area of focus in what we knew to be the royal palace. I looked at him for an explanation. He scanned my face to make sure I was ready to inspect whatever was under there. Then he motioned for me to crouch to the side. For what reason I couldn't begin to imagine. The buildup was killing me. At that point, I figured anything was possible. For the museum's sake, I hoped it was some golden, bejeweled artifact they could proudly display. It wasn't. He removed the tarp slowly. I thought he was doing it to enhance the big reveal. The truth was, he knew what was under there. I didn't. He realized every single person on Earth's life was about to change as soon as I saw the terrifying thing it covered up. At first, I couldn't follow what I saw. It was just too disturbing to comprehend. For lack of a better description, there was a huge stone frame under the covering. It was almost like a crude, large-screen TV, except the edges went all the way to the ground. The matrix screen inside this border frame was partially opaque to the eye and shimmered like a liquid reflection. It became obvious the device we'd uncovered broadcast footage of another world, one where the Nephilim obviously lived. The skies were purplish green. There were at least 3 moons visible in the horizon. Worse still, it seemed likely it was live footage. For the first known time in roughly 4,000 years, an extraterrestrial of their species was witnessed by human beings in living form. It walked by the screen, completely unaware of our discreet observation. I guess the view on their side had been blocked by tons of debris for so long, it became invisible to them. They were so hideous, I gasped out loud. We'd accidentally opened a window into another world which definitely needed to be closed, pronto. The foreman visibly cringed. He held his finger to his mouth in the universal symbol of shh. Be quiet. They'll hear us. I'd assumed it was a one-way monitor. His reaction suggested it was actually a 2-way mutual feed. I shivered at the thought and backed away. We simultaneously grabbed both sides of the tarp and covered it again before we were spotted by one of them. In what I could only assume was a bloody, protracted battle with our human ancestors, the frame had been closed 4,000 years ago. They must have burned the alien city to the ground and destroyed it in revolt. Unknowingly, we dug it back up and potentially exposed ourselves to the same bloodthirsty humanoids who killed people for food. After we were far enough away to speak freely, I asked Davis how many others in his crew knew about the Nephilim 2-way monitor. His reply lit a fire under me and chilled me to the bone at the same time. 3 of my crew members were present. Trust me, they're just as traumatized about this revelation as we are. I swore them to secrecy, but who could keep a secret like that? Far more importantly, though, it's not a monitor. It's actually an open portal between worlds. Did you smell that awful stench? That came from their planet as the wind blew toward us. During the uncovering of the relic edges, I witnessed some lizard-like creature crawl from its side to ours. I know about reptiles. This wasn't an organism from the Earth. I smushed the thing immediately with my boot, but there's absolutely nothing to stop anything else from coming through that damn portal. My knees buckled. I looked at him in disbelief. He was serious as a heart attack, and I knew he was telling the truth. I had caught a whiff of their foul wind when we observed the portal. It smelled of carnage and death. I didn't want that fate again for humanity. There was only one thing I could think to do, to stop it from happening, and it had to be done immediately. Even cross-contamination of other alien species was a risk I wasn't willing to accept. We had to move. I called a mandatory meeting with all my staff members. I suspect many of them thought I was going to make an announcement about our incredible success in excavating the dig site. Boy, were they in for disappointment. I tried to imagine their reactions to being told murderous aliens had built the prehistoric city we were rapidly unearthing. It started as the career opportunity of a lifetime. Who wouldn't want to help uncover a previously unknown Amazonian tribe? Unfortunately, I was about to crush their hopes and dreams. It was of paramount importance for us to destroy everything we'd accomplished, all with the essential goal of preventing them from ever coming back. The thing is, news travels fast. Davis's crew members had already blabbed the facts, and those recipients shared it with others, exponentially. I think anyone, biologist or not, who saw the massive deformed bones we pulled from the graves knew something wasn't right. The carpenters realized no ordinary group of human beings could have constructed the structures. It wasn't a huge leap to accept we've unearthed things better left buried. Contrary to the doubts I expected from my outlandish but 100% true statement, the entire team was on board with what we had to do. This was bigger than any of our egos. In the initial interview process, I asked each prospective member about their unique qualifications and interests. Earlier, I mentioned how that was pertinent. Let me explain. Hervé Delacroix had worked as a demolition expert. While he specialized in controlled construction explosions for the tunnel industry, he was also more than qualified to blow this dangerous gateway back to hell. Our nutritionist, Molly Stone, is also a graphic artist and a damn fine one. I've seen her work. It's spectacular, but that's not what I needed from her. I wanted her to create semi-believable fake Photoshop files of the artifacts and ruins. I wanted things to appear as if the entire expedition was a hoax to mislead the investors. Only an obvious portfolio of convincing but manipulated fakes would prevent some other organization from coming back to the ruins in the future to undo our necessary raising of it. Hervé wired the portal with enough dynamite to obliterate a mountain. Molly went to work on the next set of investor-proof photos. It must have been a challenge to take real photos of the alien city walls and twist them enough with imaging software so they looked like poor digital forgeries. She towed the line between authentic and I don't think that's real very, very well. Her manipulated images would cause an immediate investigation into our remote project. Before anything else could creep or climb through that portal between worlds, we blew it to Kingdom Gone. Hervé rigged the bank of explosives masterfully, so the sides of the walls caved in on themselves. Then, we used our fleet of heavy equipment to bury the remnants even deeper than it had been before. There were no walls left standing, and all the alien devices were destroyed and buried under tons of rubble. In all, our efforts made it so no future satellite scan would pick up any remnants of the lost Nephi-Lem civilization. Fingers crossed. The faked images worked like a charm. I was summoned back to the US to explain the photographic inconsistencies. I'm not much of an actor, but I think I pulled it off well. I had to confess in court proceedings to conspiracy of defrauding investors of millions. My career as an eminent archaeologist is over, but obviously, some things are more important than fame or glory. I took full blame for everything. There was no sense in my fantastic team being dragged through the legal system. Hopefully, they can still get work in their chosen fields. Regardless, none of us will ever forget the danger of what lies in the shadow of the ruins.